What's up, everybody? Scott and Pete here with another episode of Behind the Curtain, and it's the first of the month. So, you know what that means. We're talking market update. What's going on, Scott?
What's going on, man? So I think like nothing has changed with the market, or what do we got going
I
on?
don't know. I don't know about that. We're starting to see some changes coming around the corner. So, we're here. We're going to talk about them. So, I think the big topic of conversation since we did our last market update is interest rates increased. I forget, it's like the most in a 5-day period in like 16 years or something like that. So we are right up around 5%. So what are you seeing? How is that affecting your listings, your buyers? What are you seeing? No change, right?
Yeah, not at all. So it's super interesting, right? I am often known for being like the eternal optimist, where like I will find a way to find the good in something, right? Um, and I think the good here is that like I think what we're seeing, and I don't know if we've talked about this on the episode live or whether it's just been in our side conversations, um, but the the long and short of it is that like if anything, I think we're seeing the lead impact of that move with interest rates has not yet hit the lag measure that we will call of like having the full impact. Like we're not fully seeing the impact yet. Early signs of what I see is like, for example, right? I've got buyers right now who were pretty comfortably shopping up to like 650 under the right scenario. Now we're probably going to have to pull that back to like keep them in their comfort zone on a monthly, like closer to 6. And I think what that's leading to is just, facing a new reality, right? We can't really change anything about the market. And I promise you, the market is not crashing. So knowing those two things, it's to me, it's with buyers, it's pull back, reassess. Where are we at, guys? We've talked about this for sure before, the motivation to buy a home. How are we going to get you into a home? That's all that's changed. And on the seller side, I think I would just probably tell sellers that there's no need to be panicking like, oh my God, the market's going to fall out from underneath us. But I do think like if you have been sitting on the sideline, and there is another interesting program we can talk about on the mortgage side of things, maybe on another episode, to put our sellers in a better position. It just kind of came into fruition here. But I think if you're a seller and you've been sitting on that sideline, it's go time. Like get on the market again where we know with some certainty what's going on. And I think we're also just about to have a wave of stuff close that was during the frenzy period, which is going to bring some really interesting comps onto the, into the picture. So that's my long-winded way of kind of saying no need to panic, but let's all take a step back, reassess where we're at, and know that there was a big change in the market and we need to act accordingly. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you just said. I think the one thing to really just like really for anybody who's watching this to just really take into consideration, right? Because you may be looking at, maybe you're in your neighborhood, there was a house that went on the market, and just last week, it was only on the market and they got a ton of offers. So you may be thinking, okay, well, if the increase to 5% of the interest rate, it doesn't seem to be really having an effect on this, right? Because it's everything, it still had multiple offers, it still sold really quickly. So why should I be worried? But I think what you're alluding to, right, is the lag measure, right? So something happens here today in the real estate market, we don't really see the impact of that for at least 30, more likely 60 days, right? So yeah, I think your example there with the 650 to 600, and these are all things that we've said were coming, right? We said interest rates were going to have to go up, and we anticipated at that time that the only thing that would slow down the appreciation of homes, their home value, I should say, is an increased interest rate, because an increased interest rate, like you just said, knock that buyer down from 650 to 600. Something else that we've seen a lot of, or we're starting to see more of, is, over the last month, I've seen quite a few homes come back on the market. So why is that? So what we're seeing is, again, when rates initially went up, I think you saw that frenzy, right? People had to get in. They didn't want them, going up too high. They made all these offers that were just not realistic, right? Waiving everything and everything else, and just to then let the dust settle a little bit, acquire the home, get to the attorney review process, and the attorney's like, "Are you sure you know what you're offering here?" And like a little bit more conversation with friends and family, and just that buyer remorse starts to kick in, and then now they're trying to find ways to get out of the deal, right? Um,
Yeah, buyer remorse. And the other thing there is the reality of like how quickly those rates jumped. I think what some of what we saw too is if a buyer was in a deal and they weren't locked on rate yet, like there became a really tough conversation there of like, I think some of these buyers probably got forced out of being able to afford the home they were under contract on.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Yeah, I would absolutely imagine that that's happened quite a few times for someone who didn't lock in their rate and it jumps up 0.5%. Well, now my mortgage payment becomes unaffordable. I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable with it. And yeah, that's a tough thing too. I mean, you've been fighting so long to try and get a house, you finally get it and then rates go up. I mean, it's a challenging market for sure. That part hasn't changed. But I can tell you, I've had one example of buyers. I've been working with them for a while, probably close to 2 years. We had a house under contract. They weren't comfortable with the inspections, went back, into the market, searching. With the recent rate increase, they're like, look, Pete, we appreciate everything you've done. We know you've done your best, but we're just not comfortable now. We just need to take a break. I
Yeah.
mean, these are buyers who went at it for 2 years. And now this rate increase in the low inventory is just coupled together to create a situation where they're just going to take a break from the market. And I can't blame them. But I
Yeah.
think you're going to see more and more of that. So that does not bode well for home values continuing to appreciate. Now we're still in a very strong sellers market, right? We're still have a ton of backlog on buyers who are trying to get into homes. But
Yep.
if your home, yesterday or say 2 months ago, if you put it on the market with Stealth for 650, you're still probably looking at it selling for 650 today, but it's not going to sell for 675 in a month from now, as long as rates stay where they are or continue to increase.
Yeah. And the one counter I would have for like the idea of like, home values not going up or like potentially starting to slow down. I think the slowdown is a very real thing. But one of the cool things that I've seen in the past couple of weeks is like following along with like realtors and even just people who bought back in the 80s, realtors that were doing business for 20, 30 years, right? Like I'm coming up on 10 years in the business, which to me feels like forever. But it's cool that like I think, and this to me applies to like anything in life, is like when there's like blood in the streets, or when there's panic, and when you start to hear messaging like that, like what I like to do and what's been so cool to see is like pause for a minute and like reflect back on history and like look for clues as to like, hey, has something like this happened before, and like what happened afterwards. And I know like our colleague Kyle posted a pretty cool like extensive stats backed history of some of the things that have happened when interest rates have jumped, and then right thereafter home values continue to go up. And so it's like the market is so interesting to me, and yet I think like rather than having the panic set in, what we're trying to do right now with this conversation is just let everyone know like it's okay, but this is a really good point in time to like check what's going on, right? Like just check in, figure out what's going on, and then move forward because it's going to be okay. History tells us that. So
Yeah.
that's my little 2 cents. I don't know.
No,
It's
yeah, I think,
so
well, I
tough
think
trying
too,
to like predict the future, right? But
well, yeah, we know we can't do that, right? But I
yeah,
think, what rates are doing going up is not, I don't, there's no prediction that again, your house is going to lose a ton of value if you don't sell it right now, right? Like that's not what we're saying by any means. However, if you're thinking, well, I'm just gonna with the way rates are going, well, with the way home values are going, I'm gonna wait till the spring, or I'm gonna wait till midsummer to sell because wow, just imagine how much my home will be worth then. That I'm not so sure of. That
yeah,
I think it's just a matter of time with interest rates going up, buying power coming down. It has to give somewhere, right? It just can't keep going on this trajectory. And I think what we're starting to see is the early signs of that. And I think, again, just to come back, is we won't know, right? We won't know for another 30 or 60 days how this rate increase is really going to impact the market. So for my money, I'm trying to get my house on the market now while there still are a ton of buyers out there who are willing to pay, over appraised value, who are willing to waive inspections, who are willing to give you, 60 days in the home just because they want to lock something up. For my money, I'm trying to get that done sooner rather than later if I've got someplace to go or a property to sell.
Yeah, and I think that is so another common theme we've talked a lot about is, especially in tumultuous times, what is the one thing we can offer, especially on the seller side, right? Is certainty. I can certainly tell you that if you put your house on the market tomorrow, you're going to get some great activity on it. We're going to go over asking as long as we price it accordingly. We're going to get you great terms. These are all things I can certainly tell you will happen if we go on the market tomorrow. The tough thing is playing that forecasting game. Once we try and forecast, it's really anyone's guess, right? So if you're looking for some certainty, certainly list your house right now.
I know we don't ever want to. No, that was a good play on words, Scott. I like that. We don't ever want to come off as like the cheesy salespeople, right? Our job is to give you the information for you guys to make the best decision for yourselves. And I do genuinely believe that you're not going to see that impact now, but you will see that in 30 to 60 days. And I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So, and yes, I think that's a great point to kind of wrap it all up on before I think this market's getting me a little bit goofy. So,
well, yeah. And, you're right. Now you're triggering my mind and I'm starting to get into a whole nother topic, but we're at time. We got to go. So as always, guys, we hope that this brought you some information that you found valuable. Scott, you got any parting words before we sign off here?
Till next time, guys.
All right. Have a great day.